Hey guys, before we start this one, just a couple of quick announcements. Number one, I'm still looking for more artwork. I'm going to do one more student artwork compilation video for the end of the year. So if you've been making stuff that you haven't already sent me, get your parents to send me photos of whatever you've been making at home. We're going to do one more student compilation video. Speaking of nearing the end of the year, because we're almost there, we are having our talent show. And of course, we're going to have to do it virtually this year. So Ms. Ground set up a way you can submit on Flipgrid. I'm going to put a link down in the description below, because with it being virtual, we can hopefully have lots of different videos of you guys doing whatever you're good at, right? Whether it's art or music or gymnastics or anything. You guys have crazy talents. So yeah, I'll put all those links down in the info below. And so you can click on those and participate, because we want to see what you guys have been up to too. So this is going to be a really quick one for me today. I just wanted to, I've been doing a lot of sculpting with air dry clay recently, obviously, if you've been watching. So I just wanted to share with you a couple of the things that I learned from that experience, because I hadn't used air dry clay in like a long time before I tried this. And I learned a couple things. So the first thing I learned is you really want to make sure your clay is wet enough, right? So when you first get it out of the package, for me anyway, it was very crumbly. I had to mix in a decent amount of water just to get it to the right texture. You want it so it's not like crumbling and falling apart. Having an appropriate surface is also really important. If I was working directly on the desk, I think number one, the clay would have stuck to it, and number two, it would have been a huge mess. So I was originally working with some like wax paper, which worked pretty good, and then I had like a plastic plate I was working on. Speaking of which, let's share what we've actually done. So here's my little Goomba. And as you can see, if you've ever played Mario, he looks like a Goomba. I've got this little turntable so we can see it from all angles since it's a sculpture. And my third kind of tip for working with air dry clay is you definitely want to have tools, right? So I was using two main tools. Obviously, your fingers are a tool you're going to use with clay a lot, but I was using this little thing, which I think is actually made for cake decorating. My wife was watching me as I was sculpting, and she's going, you know what? That's actually a whole lot like decorating a cake as far as like the way the materials work. I was also using the back of this little paintbrush. Any little plastic tool is going to help. And the reason that helps is because certain places, obviously, your finger is not going to fit into. So that definitely might help with that. Speaking of which, let's smooth our joints out, right? So one of the things I noticed was just sticking the pieces together really didn't work so well. You really want to smooth those pieces together. So joints like this actually came apart several times. So I learned from that, and I made my dragon a little bit better when I did my dragon, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. So yeah, definitely make sure you've got something where you can smooth it out. And I was finding myself dipping my clay tool in water a lot and as I smoothed out my joints. So you definitely want to have some tools you can use in addition to your fingers to work. The next one I think is the most important part. I'm going to show you how my final dragon turned out. So there he is. I got all the details I wanted. This is totally dry at this point. And with air dry clay, it seems like how long you wait is really important as far as getting things looking smooth. Because obviously at first, when your clay is really wet, you're not going to be able to get it as smooth probably as you want. You need it to dry a little bit. So it's like got a little bit of resistance to it. Otherwise, when you're smoothing it out, you're just going to be changing the shape of it. So this is probably my most important tip, at least for the type of air dry clay I used. I noticed about 24 hours is the sweet spot. When it had been sitting out drying for about 1 day exactly, I noticed it was hard enough that it wouldn't change shape when I tried to smooth it out, but it was still soft enough that I could change the shape of it. So after it sat out for about 1 day, I noticed by dipping my finger in water, I could really smooth it a lot better. And so I did a little bit of smoothing. You can see there's definitely some stuff that still looks bumpy on mine. Like right here, that's looking really kind of bumpy. And so this, I also learned a little bit of this the hard way so I smoothed it out and I was like, cool, that worked great. This was about a day after I let it dry. I said, I'll just keep going back and kind of smoothing it out more and more. Well, the next day it was much more rigid, more hard, and it really did not smooth anywhere near as well. So I think that 24-hour, that's the sweet spot where it's got enough time to dry, but you can still go back, add water to it and smooth it. Because at this point, it's pretty well air dried. I tried adding more water and smoothing it more, and at this point it's really not working very well as far as smoothing. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what it is. I think it's pretty much dry at this point. Obviously, since this is air dry clay, I don't have to kiln fire it, so that's ready to paint, which I assume I'm going to do at some point. But I'm probably going to take a break because I spent a really long time on this. So the last kind of tip I have, I'm assuming that I could take some sandpaper to this, really fine grit sandpaper, and I could probably get that looking a lot smoother. But I think that would probably take a very long time. So I'm not going to start that process just yet. I actually have another sculpture that I started sanding, and I kind of wish I hadn't because it looked okay to start with, and now half of it's sanded and it's taking forever. So yeah, I think those are generally the tips. I'll probably paint this Goomba before I try to paint this. That's going to be quite an ordeal. This should be pretty simple. Again, start simple. So when I paint this, if I learn anything about painting the clay, I'll certainly let you guys know. But yeah, basically there's my air dry clay sculptures. It was interesting kind of using a new material and learning how it works. And I think my results are pretty decent. The dragon, if you watched, took like a long time to do, but I'm decently happy with the result. Oh, one last little tip. When it's drying, at some point you need to flip it and lay it on its side or something because your bottom will take forever to dry. And you want to get your bottom dried out too. So about 24 hours later, when I flipped it and it was still a little bit wet, I was able to put more clay in the bottom and reinforce that because one of these feet looked like it was about to break off. So yeah, it seems like that's really your sweet spot for the air dry clay, is that 24 hours that it's been sitting out where it's not totally dry yet, but you can still go back and change things and add things if you want to. I had a bunch of cracks in mine. It seems like this material cracks a lot. And I was able to like add more clay and smooth out those cracks too. So again, I'm decently happy with those results. I think that looks all right. And that's basically what I learned from using the air dry clay. Cool process. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. I just wanted to share those things with you in case you guys have air dry clay, and hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier for y'all to sculpt with it. Again, talent show coming up. If you want to participate in that, I'll put a link down in the description below. You can hit that. And if you have any questions, how do I do this? What do I need to click on? I've already had several students asking me that. You can feel free to email me or Miss Ground, I'm sure, and we'll help you out with that. Yeah, talent show coming up. And of course, if you have artworks that you've been working on, I'm going to make another student compilation video probably next week or two before the end of school. So make sure you're getting your parents to send me artworks that you've been making too. I think that is it for today. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.